All right. How am I doing? Is this working? Looks like we got audio going there. I think we got audio coming here. I believe we should be good to go. Hope we're good to go. That looks good, that looks good. Cool, still getting used to all of the settings and making sure everything looks good for streaming. Cool. All right. Well, I'm just gonna start screwing around making some sounds until somebody shows up. Let's make a little like plucky kind of thing. That's what I'm feeling today. That's a good start. Make a little monophonic, a little unison. Let me play with some levels here. Like that. Liking that so far. Let's play with the filter a little bit. Don't mind that. Let's play with some effects. No, I don't need to go hard in distortion on this. I think this is much more of a subtle kind of sound, although phaser could be good. Maybe a little bit less on this and a little more on this. Digging that so far. I could play with some of the effects on here, see what happens. Let's do that, and then maybe even a little bit of reverb could be kind of cool. Hey JNF, how's it going? Like that, but that is way too much. Let's do just convolution first. everything sound good to you, Jeff? Can you hear me and everything? Let's do like a plate. Cool. How are you doing today? That might not be quite right. I kind of like that. I think that can actually kind of work. Still might be a little bit too much. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good today. Just filmed some videos today and started editing them a little bit, but I'm feeling like more energized and more excited about the live streams than I am the videos right now. So I'm hoping that I don't have any sound issues today, and yeah, I think it'll be good. I'm super stoked for the stream on Friday though, for the song feedback stream, which I've done before on Twitch, and that was super fun. There you go, I think I like that. And then we'll toss in the algorithm to go with it. Digging that. And I'm just kind of screwing around, just making this kind of plucky bass sound. But feel free to chime in if you have anything you want to talk about or questions or whatever. And then I think I need a little bit of saturation. Sending a little bit less reverb still. I just want a little tiny bit on there. Cool, I'm actually kind of digging that. I'm gonna go ahead and see if there's any other effects and then save this as a preset. Anything else I want to put on here? Maybe a tiny bit of chorus could be cool. I'll take that. And even less reverb. Maybe a tiny bit more than that. Jeff, I saw you've been watching a bunch of the videos. It seems like you're enjoying them, so hopefully you're learning some stuff. And we'll go ahead and grab all these guys. Rack that up, or rename it. Save that as a preset. Add that to my bass. And then I think I'm just gonna keep playing around with that. I've got like a slightly different audio setup than I did last time. So hopefully I won't get any more of those like weird audio dropouts, but I'm still nervous that like I'm gonna do something wrong and it's gonna screw up my mic. All right, so we can take that, and I guess we'll go ahead and write something for it. last one. That's probably still good enough. A couple of the timings are off. Figure out the time. Oh, cool! You watched all of them. That's a lot of videos to watch, I guess, in a couple of days. But I appreciate it. I'm always on the lookout for more ideas for topics and things. So if you have ideas for things you want to see covered in future videos, feel free to just either put in the chat or feel free to just let me know. All right, now I just need to figure out which ones have timing issues. That one is a little bit late. That one's also a little bit late. And this one I think is a little bit early. Should be over there. All right, that should be good. Let me just quantize it a little bit. Cool, so we can take that and then let's put some drums with it. I'm gonna put my tempo at a weird place. Let's do 123, I guess. Which means we gotta slow this guy down. Now I can put some drums in there. Let's try this guy. And this might be a little bit too intense, but we'll try those guys together. And let's grab some kicks. Like that guy for our punchy kick, and this guy will go with it. Take this boomy guy and fade it out a little bit so we don't have like such a crazy huge boom. Normally I don't make house music, but sometimes, you just gotta make house music. Toss in some snares. Same thing for this guy. I'm going to fade him out a little bit. So yeah. this note not playing? That's weirding me out. Hey Anthony, how's it going? Yeah, just put this together a minute ago. Just put together a little plucky bass patch and then just use capture just to make something in here. But I'm just kind of screwing around making some stuff, but feel free to chime in if you have any questions or anything you want to talk about. That note should be playing and it's not playing, which is really screwing with my head. It sounds cool. I might actually leave it like that, but that note should definitely be playing. Cool, and then we'll do a little bit of a side chain just to make our lives a little easier. Grab from our kick drum. Thank you. Yeah, again, I normally don't make house music. This is like very much outside of my wheelhouse in terms of what I do. But it's working for me today. So sometimes you just gotta go where the wind takes you in terms of making stuff. All right, let's get some hats in here. That'll make my life a lot better. Those are all open hi-hats. Give me the closed hi-hats. That could work. It's a little hard, but we could tone it down a little bit. Yeah, I found that like the more I try to like zero in on a particular style or a thing that I want to be doing, my brain is just like, no, we're just gonna go a different direction with it. I like that one, so we'll take those two. Maybe turn this one down a little bit. Start with the basics. Less velocity on these hats and then randomizing them. It seems like a good idea. Maybe a little bit more velocity than that. Cool. And then I'm feeling lazy, so I'm just going to grab like a shaker loop to round it out a little bit. None of those. That could work, I think. Cool, I'm feeling this. And then let's make some chords. I guess we'll start with like a triangle kind of thing. Bump up the unison. And let's crank it up even more actually. not that much. So we'll take that, add another oscillator on here, find an interesting one. A little too bright there. I like that. Let's give it a little bit of motion. A slower motion. And let's play with where this is going a little bit. Not that far either direction. I like that. So even slower. Awesome, yeah, that's super cool. Take care of business, do whatever you need to do, Anthony. I'll just be here and making some weird noises, and I'm not sure how far I can push the session while also streaming. Last stream it was causing me some issues with my mic, but I hopefully fixed that. So I'm not going to try to like finish the song with this. I'm mostly just going to kind of experiment with ideas, just kind of see how far I can take it without the stream just like straight up dying on me. But I appreciate you stopping by. It means a lot to me. All right, so we need even slower LFO and even more subtle LFO. When it comes to these pads, a tiny bit of movement is all you really need to make it sound cool. All right, so we got that, and let's toss some echo on it, partially for the built-in reverb. And let's give it a little bit more of attack and a little bit more release, a lot more release. Yeah, all the streams should be auto-uploading, so you should be able to find them on the channel. I'm still like working on all the technical stuff with streaming, but it should be up there, and it should be visible as well as the last two streams. All right, I'm actually really digging that. That actually sounds pretty good, pretty close to what I was going for. I might give it a little bit of filtering. Let's do like the same LFO here, just a tiny bit. Maybe not even that much, and a little bit more resonance. I'm not even sure what else I do on this. I think it's sounding pretty solid. That's the way it is. Let's do a little ping pong just for fun, and maybe a little bit less wet on the delay. Cool, let's take that, and then let's see if I can remember what chords I played here. I did a, looks like a 1, 6, 4, 5. And then a 1, 3, 6, 5. So it was a 1, 6. All right, let's see if I can remember that. 1, 6, 4, 5, 1, 3, 6, 5. Got it pretty close there. Let's go ahead and quantize it a little bit. it's a little slow. Let's give it a little bit less attack. So it doesn't sound quite so slow. And I can probably go a little crazier on like the chorus. Right, I haven't done any chorus yet, so any chorus would be more crazy, but. And then a little bit of side chain from the kick. Pitch this up an octave if that helps it out at all. I think I want this to sound a little like more noisy. I think that's more kind of what I want to go for here. So I think I might have to get rid of this guy, switch this to a saw wave. I want to go from that more kind of like 80s, almost kind of super saw thing. Yeah, I think that's more I want to go for, even though I want to get creative with it. Maybe this will still work. That's more of what I want to do here. Interesting. All right, let's keep going. So Jennifer is asking, how can I add a creative vocal chop from a vocal loops up one shot? So you got a vocal loop or you got a one shot. So you have a vocal thing and you want to start chopping it. Is kind of what I'm getting at for the question here. Hey Mike, how's it going? There's tons of ways to chop up vocals. It's really kind of up to you and which technique works best for you. And whether you want to be really systematic about chopping up vocals or you want to be a little bit more chaotic about chopping up vocals. I'll show you one of my favorite techniques and we'll see if I can actually integrate it into this track. The issue though is I don't have a lot of good vocal samples right now. So I'm at if we get lucky, maybe I'll find a good vocal sample and I can make it work with this track, but odds are I might not have something that'll do that. So if I go in here, do I have any good vocal things. That could actually work potentially. Although I want to find something that has a little bit more variety in it for the sake of chopping things.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. Gang of bad. I think I'm going.
These are all kind of lame. Let me see. If I go in here, if there's anything good. I want like a vocal phrase is what I'm looking for. Those ones could work. This could work. This is okay. We'll take something like this. This is not necessarily something I would normally do this on, but I think this could work. So I'm just going to take this, put it over here for right now, and like I said, one of my favorite ways to do vocal chops is to use the slice mode on Simpler. So if you take a vocal sample and put it into Simpler, and you put it in slice mode, generally what it's going to do is it's going to slice it based off of the transients. Now, depending on your vocal sample, sometimes there's a very clear transients, like if it's like really clear words, it'll put slices at the start of each word, hopefully. This does not have a lot of clear transients to it. It's like one long vocal thing. So if I just play a note, it should sound kind of like that. So what I'm going to do, if you put it in slice mode, each one of these blue lines represents basically a slice and is mapped to different MIDI notes starting at C1. So like that's a slice, that's a slice. So you can slice it up and just start playing it. Let me give them a little bit more of a fade out so they're not quite as choppy. And so you can just play with your MIDI controller, start playing it and kind of like slice things up and chop things up that way. You can also get really creative with using some MIDI effects in combination with this technique. So if you grab like an arpeggiator and a random device, if I just hold down a single note right now, every 8th note, it's going to play that note. And then if I turn this on, I can then, each time I hold down that one note, it's going to randomly pick another note up to 12 notes higher. And after I hold it down, it's going to keep randomizing it. So this is one of my favorite ways to do vocal chops. If you just have like a single vocal sample, you can just hold this down and then resample it till it comes up with like a cool combination, and it's super fun. Works really well for acapellas. So if you can find like an acapella of a track, you can just put it in there and like hold down a note and like come up with combinations of vocal slices that way. Hey CHG, welcome. How's it going? Sakash or Zach, that's a great name. I love the name Zach. Appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying the videos and the channel. And then, unfortunately, I don't know how to read Russian characters, so I don't know how to pronounce your name. But you were saying you have an idea of a percussive generator using a drum rack, samplers, arpeggiator plus random. Yeah, I actually did a video on that. And then putting it, it's on the channel. It's one of the earlier videos I did on the channel when I was doing the quick tips. But basically the same kind of idea as this, but instead of using a sampler with in slice mode with vocals, if you just grab like a drum rack with a bunch of like different weird sounds in it. So this is a drum rack that's just a bunch of metallic sounds. I don't know why is that off. Oh, it already has the random one here. So let me get rid of this stuff. So if I am not mistaken, what you're looking to do is create like a random metallic kind of sound. Hey Jack, how's it going? So in this case, I've got, what is this, 13 metallic samples. Like that. And then when you turn on the arpeggiator, you just play a single note. It's going to repeat that note. And then you turn on the random. And then you increase the chance to like, I don't know, like 90%, 80%. And then you set the choices to be 16, which means that sometimes it's going to pick these 3 empty slots. So you get different interesting rhythms out of it. And let's speed this up a little bit to like 16th notes. Which when you play it, all right, hopefully the mic is back. Test, check, 1, 2. Can you hear me now? Hopefully. Yeah, this is the same issue I was having last stream, and I'm not entirely sure what's causing it because OBS is still receiving audio, and my mic is still going in there. So it's somewhere in between OBS and YouTube that it freaks out sometimes. So just yell at me if the mic goes out again. But you were asking about being able to switch, be able to kind of have this as a setup and then switch from like different drum racks so you could get like different combinations of randomly generated sounds. Does that sound accurate? Because if that's what you're going for, the easiest thing I could probably think of would be take your drum rack, put it inside of another rack, and then have multiple chains with multiple drum racks. So if I had like a different drum rack here that has like a bunch of shakers, so that's both the shaker ones. This is the metallic one, and this one's the shakers. And then open up the chain area, and then you could use this to swap back and forth between different drum racks. So hopefully, I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or not, but that's probably what I would do if you wanted to be able to like have one setup to randomly generate a bunch of material, and then be able to switch back and forth between different racks generating different materials without having to like rebuild everything from scratch. Does that make sense? Or at least hopefully I'm answering your question. Because realistically, you do something like this where you take both of these guys, extend them out, and then distribute your ranges. And then you could swap back and forth between different drum racks, all while maintaining your arpeggiator and your random device together. I think that's what you're asking about. I think that's the question you're asking, but sometimes it can be a little bit hard to tell. And if that's not what you're asking about, just let me know and we'll see if we can figure it out. But randomly generating stuff is super, super fun. Hey, Kay, Tripathy. Oh God, I'm so bad at pronouncing names. How's it going? And just in case anybody is just joining us or is new, I'm mostly just kind of doing this really informally. So if you have questions or things you want to be talking about, just toss it in the chat, and I will try to make sure I get to everybody in case you have certain topics you want to talk about. Also, since I have some people here, on Friday, I'm going to be doing a song feedback stream. So if you guys want to send me your songs in the chat on the stream on Friday, I will play them on stream and I will talk about them and give you advice and feedback, and it'll be a lot of fun. So hopefully if you guys are around on Friday, that's what I'll be doing. Jeff, do you feel like I answered your question about vocal chopping? Using the arpeggiator and random device plus simpler is just one of many ways to do it. Oftentimes I find with like vocal samples, I'll like manually slice them by hand and move them around as well. That's another bit more time consuming way to do it, but it can work really well. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm gonna get rid of some of these channels because I think CPU overload is what's causing the mic issues. So latency issues in Live 11 I have not had too many issues with. CPU, yes and no. For the Live 11 beta, I was using my laptop, which was dying a slow, painful death. And so that was having CPU issues, but I don't necessarily think that was as much Live 11 as much as it was my computer. Fairly recently, I upgraded to one of the new M1 MacBook or Mac Minis, and the CPU issues mostly went away, although it seems like the CPU here is actually not accurate, is what I found with the Mac Mini. Like the M1 chip reads CPU slightly different, and so even though this is at 17%, I actually can push my computer a lot harder than this. It actually think it's much less. They also in 10.0.2 made a bunch of CPU changes, and the CPU has gotten a lot better. CPU issues have gotten a lot better in the last when they came out like last week. On top of that, I talked to somebody who works at Ableton yesterday, and they said that they have a lot more stuff planned for CPU reduction stuff. So if you're running into a lot of CPU stuff, probably my best advice is be patient with it. They are super, super aware at Ableton that CPU issues in 11 have been causing people a lot of trouble. So my guess is in like 10.0.3, 11.0.3, and 11.0.4, you're going to see a lot of updates that are going to be hopefully positively impacting CPU stuff. So I have had some CPU stuff, but not as much as other people. But I've also noticed it's getting better. It's kind of the short answer to that question. Yeah, I think, Mike, as of right now, until I come up with a better system, I think just people are going to post SoundCloud links in chat. Eventually, I might have more of like a form people fill out and have more of like a list ahead of time or something like that. But we'll see how it goes. I've been using 11 pretty exclusively for the last couple months. I got into the beta pretty early on, so once it kind of came out, mostly because a lot of times as a trainer, people ask me questions about the new features, so I tend to, like, once the beta comes out for the new version, I tend to stick with it. I have not really gone back to 10 a whole lot. My computer's mostly been able to handle everything, especially since getting the M1 chip. Somebody was saying a problem some synths that have a long decay or sustain have been getting endless sustain. Let's to cancel the MIDI. That's what's happening. Mike, is that something that happened in just in 11, or was it just something you've noticed in general with using certain synths? You've been getting like infinite sustain. What's up, DJ Emo? I think 10's great. I think that for certain people, upgrading to Live 11 is not super necessary for certain workflows and certain styles of music. I personally really like all the new devices, and comping is really amazing. So it's hard for me to go back now. Plus, there's a bunch of like really small quality of life stuff that now that I've gotten used to, going back to 10 seems like a step backwards. But I think, I don't think there's any one feature in 11 that really makes me feel like people need to upgrade. Like when Live 10 came out, capture was is my favorite feature of all time, and like I can't go back to Live 9 because I need capture. That's how I record almost all my MIDI. You've been enjoying the Uniform? I don't even know how to say it. Uniform software synth. I haven't tried that out yet. I'll have to check it out. Yes, so on Friday, you can link songs wherever, as long as I can just hit play and stream it, and that's fine. I don't really care where they're streaming from. I'm assuming that most people, especially for uploading works in progress, are just putting them on SoundCloud, but you can send me links from wherever. I don't really care. Interesting, Mike. I haven't heard about infinite sustain being an issue for people a whole lot in terms of like what people complain about with Live 11. So that's very interesting to me. Is it only certain synths, or is it like every synth is doing it? Connor, you're looking for a batch collect all and save, meaning you want to be able to like have multiple projects and collect all and save them all at the same time. That would be kind of handy. I don't do a lot of collecting all and saving unless I'm like transferring it from one computer to another, or like doing a collaboration or something like that. What I would like is just a key command for collect all and save. It really bothers me that I have to go up and hit file and then hit collect and save. There should just be like a shift, option command S or something for collect all and save. That's what I would really like. Yeah, key command for collect all and save would be dope. Chris, how's it going? Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. So do I know this technique in which you can accurately control the feedback volume curve on delays, for example, the echo device? So if you're, let me make sure I understand the question here. So you have an echo and you want to control the volume on the feedback as like over time, I'm assuming is kind of what you're trying to do. Oh man, there's so many people in chat now, it's hard for me to keep up with all of it. So the feedback volume curve on delays. So you want the I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. So you want to, instead of having it like linearly decay, the volume linearly decay on a feedback, you want it to like change over time. That would be interesting. I have not thought about that. I mean, I think your best bet would be like automating the feedback as it's being delayed. That could be an interesting way to do it. Or like attach some kind of envelope to your feedback control, because the feedback control is going to control the volume of your delays. Yeah, having like an exponential decay. That's a fantastic question. I've never tried to do that, and I will try to see if I can think of a solution for that. I think your best bet would be like going into your clip and going to your feedback and like doing something like this and just adding some curve to it. So like if you wanted to feedback on quarter notes, just kind of doing something like that, and that would, I think, functionally get you something kind of similar. But that seems like kind of a pain in the ass to do to make it like perfectly the way you want it to. But off the top of my head, that's kind of what I'd see as the solution to that. Or you could just go in and like do like manual volume controls, which would be the other way, like grab a utility. And then just do the same thing, but do it with a gain or something like that. Anthony, the Mac Mini I got is just the basic one. I just got the 8 gig of RAM. The 8 gig of RAM. I think it's 256 solid state drive. So it's just the most basic Mac Mini version. I was hoping to get the new MacBook Pro, but it's not out yet. The 16-inch MacBook Pro M1, whenever they finally release it, which probably won't be till like the fall or something like that. And like I said, my computer was dying a painful death, so I needed like a quick fix. And I had a bunch of deadlines and things, so I needed a computer that I could just pick up the next day. So I just got the Mac Mini, and it's honestly been working great. And I would rather have the 16 gig RAM one, but the 8 gig RAM one has been crushing it and been doing a really good job so far. But I don't have the exact link in front of me, but I can send it to you later on if you need to. You could actually, the other thing you could consider doing is side chaining the delay specifically. Like put the sidechain compressor just on the delay signal, like have it on a return or something like that, and then have whatever's triggering the sidechain would kind of pump down your feedback. That would be another actually legit option, I think, for doing something kind of similar. So is it Tripathi? Is that how you say it? I was asking about autofilter. Autofilter is, to me, a really nice, quick, and easy way to do a lot of things. I'm going to go ahead and save this guy and start a new project, and that way, let's say the 13th. That way I don't need to worry about things crashing. So autofilter is just a really great one-size-fits-all, quick and easy, does a lot of things without a lot of stress or forcing you to do a lot to it to make it sound good. Generally, if I'm going to be doing a lot of filtering in my sound design, like if I'm using Wavetable or Operator, I can just use the filter in here. The filter in here is going to be easier to use. I have more options. I have like built-in LFOs and envelopes that I can like control exactly wherever you want to put it. Whereas the autofilter has two kind of prime benefits in my opinion. Number one, it's just an audio effect, so you can put on anything. So if you are looking for like a percussive sound, like say you have an audio loop. Let me grab some like percussion. Over here, and I want this to kind of like fade in or fade out. This is a fantastic way to, instead of just doing like a volume fade in or fade out, you could just do like a filter sweep. So we could go to auto filter, grab our filter frequency, and just make it kind of like go up and down. And that's a nice way to make something kind of sound like farther, more distant, and then bring it back in. So really great for that kind of thing. You can play around with some of the other settings, like adding a little bit of resonance to it. You know, trying out different filter types can be really handy for making things kind of like move around in different ways. And that's really where I think the auto filter shines, is if you're doing filter motion or movement, really easy to set up, works really well. Whereas if you were looking for filtering as a way to like clean sounds and make them sound better, then EQ8 is going to be the better option, because EQ8, you just kind of like, you just set it and like, cool, there's my EQ and you're done. And you can automate stuff like in here, you can automate all this stuff, but it tends to be kind of a pain in the ass, and it can be a lot of work. So EQ8 is kind of set it and forget it, makes everything sound a little cleaner. whereas auto filter is more for moving things around, either by automating the filter frequency, or the other real benefit here, if I want to delete this automation, is the built-in LFO. So I can make things, essentially this LFO automatically attaches to your filter frequency, so it'll move up and down at the amount set here and the rate set here. So you can make things move around. And unfortunately, you don't actually see the motion here of it moving up and down, but it's obviously doing it. You can also do it in stereo, which is really nice. So you can get these cool things like moving around in different directions. So that's the kind of thing I think autofilter is really good at. The other thing that people always forget about with autofilter is it can be sidechained. So if you turn the sidechain on, you can basically move your filter frequency up or down based off of an incoming audio signal. So if you were to, let's just grab like a kick drum or something. And we'll put it over here. So if you want something to move your filter around, you can, let's turn the LFO off, turn the sidechain on from the kick. And so if you just turn it on like this, it's not going to do anything. But if you move the envelope either up, it means each time there's a kick drum, the filter is going to move up. Or if you move it the other direction, each time there's a kick drum, it's going to move down. So if we start it down here and move it up, so again, you don't see it moving around. Or you can move it the other direction where it goes down. So things like that, I think, are really where the auto filter kind of shines. And hopefully, I think that hopefully answered your question. There's not a whole lot more you can do with it. If you're used to how kind of filters work, it's just a really handy, easy filter that does a lot with very little effort. The other real kind of benefit of using autofilter as opposed to like another built-in filter here is that, say we have this wavetable and then we have like a bunch of effects, like we have like a delay and an amp and a, I don't know, phaser. Certain effects, especially distortions, like amp or something like that, will add in harmonics. So they're going to add in a lot of like higher frequencies. So if you want to reduce a lot of those higher frequencies, you can use autofilter either in the middle of your signal flow or at the end of your signal flow. So it gives you kind of like maximum control over which frequencies you're hearing. And that's the other kind of benefit of autofilter, is the flexibility to, you know, put it in between effects or after effects to control exactly which harmonics and which kind of how much of each harmonic you're hearing. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, I'm gonna go catch up with chat. I get too excited about talking about filters. Using envelope flower to create inter-track dynamics, for example, using the volume envelope to create texture track. Yeah, envelope flower is fantastic. If you're not using envelope flower, get your life together and start using envelope flower. Really, really handy. I mean, again, if you're doing something like in Wavetable, you have built-in envelopes that kind of automatically do this kind of thing. But envelope flower can be fantastic. For example, I want to have like a dry-wet control, and I want the dry-wet control to change with the volume of the sound. So grabbing an envelope follower and mapping that to like a dry-wet. So now, if I give this a little bit of rise and a little bit of fall, the amount of distortion we're going to get here, why is that not? Oh, it's bugging out. Sometimes it does this where you can't see the thing moving. Normally you should be able to see this move, and then you'll see the dry wet here will change, and you can get different amounts of an effect as the volume changes, which is fantastic because it responds to an incoming audio signal, which makes it a bit more dynamic than just like a straight up sound. Yeah, so Anthony, like I said, I've been totally fine with the 8 gig one. I've been doing like video editing and stuff with it. If I had more time, if I wasn't on a deadline to upgrade my computer, I definitely would have gone for the 16 gig though. It's like not that much of a cost increase for a big performance increase. So maybe one day I'll trade this in for the 16 gig one. We'll see. So Mike was asking about the red lines. This guy's right here. That's because I have the push plugged in. So the push, I can use this to launch clips and things like that. So if I switch this into session mode on the push, I can move it around and basically allows me to launch clips, and that's what that does. So pretty much any controller that can map this way, that can do like clip launching, will give you a little box right there. And the color, you can have multiple ones, so you can have like different colors in there. It looks like email already answered the question though. So Jack was asking about the newfangled audio mastering suite, Elevate. I have not tried that out yet, but now that you mention it, I'll look into it and see if I can get a demo or something on it. Yeah, there's so many plugins and plugin companies out there. It's really hard to keep up all of them. And oftentimes I end up finding myself like just using live devices for almost everything these days. There's a handful of plugins that I love, that I will like always love and will always be part of my workflow, like Contact, for example, just does so many things so well. And then like the Valhalla reverbs and FabFilter plugins. So I used to be a plugin nerd where I would just like buy every plugin I could get my hands on, and now I'm like I've stepped way back on the plugin world. So I'll take a look into it and see what I can do, and yeah, see if it looks cool, and if it is, I will definitely look into it. I definitely, especially as I'm doing more and more of these tips and tricks videos, I want to start integrating more plugin stuff. So if you guys have suggestions about other plugins you want me to look into, I definitely want to start integrating those into a lot of the videos I make for the channel. So I am open for recommendations, and I will, Jack, I'll have to write down the newfangled audio one. DJ Ema, your Akai 25 doesn't show, like it doesn't do the auto mapping. Like if you go in here and set up auto mapping, I mean the Akai 25 should be in here. Was the MPK 25 you have, or the Akai Pro 25? Maybe there's not one in here. Interesting. Does the Pro 25 have like that capability though? Like, does it have the option, the Pro Advance, for launching clips? Connor, yeah, the whole point of me doing this is just to hang out with other Ableton nerds, because my girlfriend can only take so much talking about MIDI controllers. We are doing, I don't like to call it song roast, I know some people like to call it that, but we're going to do song feedbacks on Friday. So if you are into, want to share something and want to get some feedback, I'm kind of dedicating the Friday stream to just purely doing that stuff. So hopefully you can make it, and if not, I might in the future set it up so there's like a form you can fill out to like get your song on the list of songs, and that way you can just watch the video later on. But yeah, song feedbacks, talking about works in progress, is definitely one of my favorite things to do. So that's going to be a big part, I think, of what the stream's going to be about. Mike, you're asking about a tension demo. We can definitely talk about tension. Let me catch up the stream first, and then we'll talk about tension for a little bit. I think I talked about tension in a previous stream, but I definitely don't mind talking about it again. Yeah, I love the native instrument stuff. Those are amongst my first plugins I ever bought. Contact, Reactor, FM8, Massive. Those are all like have a special place in my heart. No matter what other synths come out, I love those. Interesting. One thing you could try doing is DJ Emo for the not getting the red box, is go to the Akai website and try re-downloading the script for it and see if that fixes it. Because sometimes they bug out and they're a little weird. Jack, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be back on Friday, and this has been super fun, so I'm definitely going to keep doing these in the future. Cool, I think I'm all caught up. I know, Gina, if you wanted me to do something kind of 90 BPM-ish or slower, wavetable, melodic, make a guitar sound. Cool, yeah, I will hopefully get to that as well. Hey, R. Hudson, thanks for popping by. Appreciate it. Thanks for the love. All right, so tension. Tension is a fantastic instrument that I think often really flies under the radar. I should probably do a whole video on tension because I think it's really excellent. Actually, tension's not my favorite one. Collision is my favorite one in terms of the physical modeling ones. Tension is very strange. Just real quick, just for the sake of comparison, Collision is a physical modeling device, and physical modeling is a kind of synthesis that is a step away from your traditional synthesis where you have like oscillators and filters and envelopes and LFOs and all that stuff. So instead of using an oscillator to generate your sound, you have an exciter and a resonator. And the exciter is like your imaginary object you're hitting with. So it's like a mallet or a pick or something like that. And your resonator is your imaginary object that you hit. So if you're using Collision, this area over here is your exciter, and this area over here is your resonator. So it's pretty clear cut. You have a mallet, and this hits the resonator. Resonator generates the sound. When you're using tension, it is same basic concept, except for the interface is a lot more confusing and has a lot of other weird features in here. So we have our exciter here. This is going to be essentially our object we're hitting with, and this can be either a bow, like a violin or something like that, a hammer, which is going to be like a piano, a hammer bouncing, which means you drop your hammer on the string and it bounces on the string, which actually sounds really cool. It can sound really cool if you get your settings right. And then you have your plectrum, which is just like a fancy word for a guitar pick. So this should sound kind of like a guitar. And I actually think the plectrum setting here is amongst the best settings on tension. If you turn your exciter off, it doesn't make any sound because we have no imaginary object to hit with. And then we have our string area down here. I'm going to come back to these settings in a moment because these are very confusing. And then we have our string, which is basically only the left side of this black area, which is going to be our object that we're hitting. So we can play around the settings here to control that. Let me go over the three really big issues when it comes to using tension. Number one, the bow setting right out of the box sounds absolutely terrible, and I apologize for even making you hear this, but it sounds like this. It just sounds like somebody who doesn't know how to play a violin is playing violin. Now you can tweak these settings and make it sound better than that, but it's a lot of work. So if you're going to make a violin sound, just use Contact or use Sampler or use literally anything else that can do violin string sounds really well. It's like it really is not very pleasant, and like oftentimes the more you tweak it with it, the worse it sounds. So watch out for that. And again, there are ways to tweak it and make it sound a little better. I think if you turn the inner harmonics down, it's a little better, but it's not good. So stay away from the bow setting unless you like really want to challenge yourself and are like feeling up to doing something like that. But the hammer setting, you can get very kind of like piano-y kind of sounds out of it. And again, you can start tweaking these settings and make it work. And then the plectrum I actually think sounds the best. Sounds like a kind of like nylon string guitar. And if you want to go for like electric guitar kind of sound, you could just take tension, slap on like a pedal and an amp, and it sounds really nice and distorted and sounds like a guitar. So if you want to go that direction with it, you can actually make some pretty cool like metal sounding guitars with it, even though you're starting off with like that as your basic sound. Issue number 2 with tension is that these 5 settings here are interdependent, meaning that if you tweak the settings on some of them, it'll affect how other ones behave, which makes it somewhat unpredictable and somewhat hard to actually make sound good, especially when it comes to the velocity control. One major issue you'll run into with this, if your velocity is too low, you like don't get any volume. And then as you turn it up, it gets very loud, very fast. And again, it depends a little bit on some of these settings here. So if I'm here, even though my velocity is super high, my stiffness is low, and so I don't get any sound. And there are certain situations where depending on like how you have these set up, where it'll basically go from like almost no volume to like maximum volume very, very fast. So watch out for that as you are playing with these settings. It can really screw you over. So like that, for example, like here, it's like pretty quiet. And if I turn it here, it's massively loud. So watch out for those. The third and final weird thing about tension is the settings on the string. They are a little weird, especially the decay and the ratio. So the decay is actually pretty normal. So the decay is how long it's going to resonate out. So if you turn it down, you get more of like a muted kind of plucky sound. And if this is longer, you get a longer sound. So this one actually makes a lot of sense. The ratio is the release, and this one's a little bit confusing. So this is after you let go of the note, how long it resonates out for. So this is very low. I'm not playing anything anymore. It's just resonating for basically forever. So if your ratio is really low, you get a really long release. Whereas if you turn this up high, you get less release. So ratio is your release, but lower ratio means longer release. And again, feel free to chime in. When you guys are quiet, I get suspicious. Tripathy, thanks for showing up. This video will be just on the channel if you want to check it out later. So ratio is a little weird. Decay is kind of normal. And then this inharmonic setting behaves a lot like other inharmonic settings where it's going to detune your harmonics. And it starts at 50%, which I think right now sounds okay. But I think oftentimes it sounds better when you have this lower. Actually, no, that sounds worse. So this will make it sound like it can work really well, but certain settings, it just sounds kind of weird and out of tune. Actually sounds not too bad. This is worse on the bow and the hammer setting. And the damping is going to act kind of like a muter. So as you turn this down, it's going to mute it, kind of like you're like palm playing your guitar. And the higher this is, the more kind of resonance you get with it. Sounds a little cheesy, but you can do some cool stuff with it. So that's like mostly what you're going to be doing inside tension, is playing with your exciter and your string, and that's most of your sound design. Yeah, tension's definitely one of those ones where if you like start with a preset, it's gonna make your life a lot easier, because a lot of these settings are very strange and are settings you don't actually see on like an actual synthesizer. All the rest of these settings, like the damper here, this is basically another object that you can put on top of your imaginary string. So if you put this on here, it doesn't resonate as much. However, you can do some cool stuff, like if you put it ungated, it puts on the damper after you let go of the note. So it'll play the note, and then you let go, it puts the damper on it, which is kind of cool. And if you get your settings just right, I think if you turn this up and you turn this up, you can actually get it to bounce on your string, which can be kind of cool. So not only can you have a bouncing exciter, you can also have a bouncing damper. A little bit of vibrato. The vibrato settings in here are actually really nice. Basic vibrato stuff. Let me turn the attack and the delay down. Sounds pretty good for vibrato. Body is going to be like a little built-in mini reverb, and it can emulate a piano, guitar, violin, or generic. Pickup is going to be the position of your imaginary guitar pickup, essentially. And then termination allows you to control things like finger mass, finger stiffness, and fret stiffness, which are all kind of weird settings. And sometimes it can tighten up a little bit, and sometimes it makes it sound like mush. If you like turn these down, it like doesn't sound like anything. But if you turn them up, it'll kind of affect your harmonics in terms of how it gets played. That's basically it. When it comes to tension, there is a really cool like filter section here where you have like a filter envelope, filter LFO. They're all pretty basic settings, so if you know how a filter envelope and LFO work, it's great. The one hidden feature here I do want to mention, and I think I mentioned this in a video I did a while back, is there's a formant filter, which allows you to do A, E, I, O, U sounds. Which can do some really cool weird stuff. This is one of only 2 places in live that actually has a formant filter, the other being analog. So if you want to learn more about that, check out my video on vowel sounds I did a while ago. But tension is a weird instrument, and it does certain sounds really well. Like it can do a guitar sound really well, it can do a piano sound decently well. But if you're looking to get like a lot of different sounds out of it, it might not necessarily be the right place to go. So it'd be cool to learn how to learn Ableton systematic learning pass pedagogy techniques within the certification route. What did you get your sea legs? Making the journey more nutrient dense. Yeah, I think pedagogy and just kind of like techniques of learning transmission are really fascinating. So I would love to talk about that stuff. In terms of like how I learned a lot of it, I'm sure most of you guys probably don't know this, but I went to school. I went to a music production school in San Francisco called Pyramind over a decade ago, and learned all kinds of stuff, and then came back as the TA for their class. So I basically got to retake the Ableton class several times in a row and hear how people taught it, which was really fascinating. So if you have the opportunity to, like, especially if you're still in college or high school or in a learning academic setting, if you really want to like learn something, just try to hang out with the professor and like retake the class if you want to, or if you can, as a TA or something like that. And that was really, really beneficial for me. And I think even as a student, I was really kind of aware of different teaching styles and how people kind of like presented information and what worked and what didn't work. So that was really helpful. And then after I was a TA, I kind of by accident, fell into some teaching opportunities. And that was a big learning curve. Like, getting in front of a bunch of people and talking about a topic can be very intimidating. But yeah, if you have any questions, like more specifically in terms of like the certification route or kind of how I got to where I am, I'm definitely open to talking about that kind of stuff. But I think the big thing is just be a sponge for information. Just always be learning, always be like you're never done learning, especially when it comes to music production. There's always new technology, there's always new genres, there's always new techniques. There's even history. There's different styles of, I've been getting really into like the history of electronic music and like where music comes from and how it evolves. And like there's always more stuff to learn, and there's always cool things that are out there, and there's always new approaches to it. And so I think it's knowledge is like a never-ending pursuit, and nobody knows everything about music production. It just doesn't exist. And anybody who does think they know everything definitely doesn't know everything about music production, because there's just so much out there. And I learn a lot from my students. I learn a lot from people I collaborate with. I learn a lot from other educators. But I love it when a student can teach me something and be like, hey, check out this thing I learned. And I'd be like, I'd never heard of that before. So just always be hungry for information, never be done learning. I think it's probably the best thing you can do to have a nice nutrient-dense, I guess, music career or music life. Ishkur has a great EDM history site. I have not checked that out. I will check that after this, though. Yeah, always stay humble. I think that there's a fine line you have to ride being a artist of any genre, of any style, where you have to have enough confidence to believe in yourself and believe in your creative vision and believe in what it is you're doing, but also humble enough to know that like you're not there yet. You're never going to get to that point where you're like actually as good as you want to be. But yeah, I'm always into learning more about history of electronic music stuff, so I will definitely check that out. I've got a whole lecture that I do for a class that I've taught. It's like a 2-hour lecture on the history of electronic music that I personally think is super fascinating. Yeah, tension actually works great with arpeggiators. Like a little bit of arpeggiator and a little bit of delay, like a little bit of echo on here. And then you can come up with something real pretty, real fast if you get your settings just right. I'll get that filter on there. Let's get this filter off. Let's crank this up. Let's turn this up. And let's get a little bit less decay. You could make some like very kind of like old school 90s video game soundtracks with something kind of like that. And like I said, if you put some distortion on this, it sounds great. Let's turn on a little bit less delay, a lot less delay, a little more reverb. Super easy. Nice CG ammo. Yeah, I also got into electronic music before it was like a big festival thing. Like festivals existed, but it wasn't like the main way people experience the music. So I think it's really fascinating how the culture has kind of changed and evolved, especially over the last like 15 years. And I've got a lot of very strong opinions about the pros and cons of where we're at with electronic music. If you guys want to get into that at some point. Yeah, it's great for electric guitar. Like I said, just start with the plectrum setting on tension and put a little bit of pedal and a little bit of amp, and you can get some like pretty actually gnarly guitar sounds out of it. Let's turn the arpeggiator off here. I need to start shredding on your push and sound like you're playing guitar. Let's do a little minor blues shred. Yeah, I think there's a lot of the electronic music world that is still very much that nerd culture, and that makes me really happy that I think the doors have opened to a lot of people who have always wanted to make their own music but never felt like they could, and now feels like that barrier is way down, so that any 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid with a laptop can actually like learn to express themselves in really creative, interesting ways. But there is definitely something really nostalgic about like packing up the vinyl and like putting it in the car and then like carrying your crates into the club as just like a rite of passage that doesn't really exist so much anymore. Hey, FJ Paz, how's it going? Fajipas. Saying people's name on YouTube is much harder than I thought it would be. I'm glad you're enjoying the channel. Right now we're just kind of hanging out. Feel free to pop any questions or anything you want to talk about in the chat. Did I lose audio again? Can you guys still hear me? All right, so Benjamin was asking about Big Sur and NIFX. So I am on Big Sur. I just recently, okay, cool, just make sure. Sometimes my computer does something weird and then I want to make sure the audio is good. I did upgrade to Big Sur. I do not have all of my Native Instruments plugins installed on my computer that has Big Sur yet. Actually, something I need to do this week. I've been procrastinating doing that. But I have not looked into specifically any issues with the Native Instruments effects and Big Sur and crashing, but it wouldn't surprise me. Big Sur has been a goddamn nightmare for a lot of different reasons. So unfortunately, I won't be able to help you out with that, but I will try to install those this week, and then maybe later on in a later stream, if you want to come back, I'll see if I have any info about what to do about plugins crashing, the Native Instruments plugins crashing. Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Mike, in terms of the authenticity and what makes something cool. I have a class that I teach that's about kind of like finding your voice as an artist, and which I think is a really interesting topic. And one of the what's it called? One of the tools that I use, I guess, is I'll have my students kind of write out what makes a good song, like what separates a good song from just every other song that's out there. Like why are your favorite songs your favorite songs? And I found that one of the top reasons for me personally is authenticity. So like I don't care what genre something is, if the artist is being authentic when they are producing and making that music, then like that's all I care about. And I would much rather listen to a song that sounds like shit but the love is there than like a perfectly produced song that like sounds like a robot wrote it. So authenticity is the big thing for me across the board when it comes to music. Skate Alex, how's it going? So what are my favorite ways to start new songs? Sometimes they get complicated and layer in too many stems before ideas form. I am also guilty of that, of just like creating way too many layers and then getting lost in it. To keep it simple, in terms of answering your question, I think number one, placeholders is really, really valuable. Don't if I put too much effort into like making one sound or making one layer or making one even like chord progression or melody, then it slows my momentum down. So if I can focus on momentum when I start writing a song, I am infinitely more likely to actually finish that song. So when I sit down, it's like a couple minutes for drums, a couple minutes for bass, a couple minutes for synths, a couple minutes for vocals, a couple minutes for melodies, a couple minutes for chords, and just like force myself to be like, that's good enough, move on to the next thing. And if I do that well, then once I get like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers, I start to get a picture of what the song is actually gonna sound like. And then I can make the super important decision of, do I like this song and do I want to finish it? Or is this song not that great and it's going in the archives for maybe another day? And if I can get to that point within like an hour or two, that's a good sign for me. Because sometimes you just write a song and it's just like, it's just not that good. So when you're in a situation like that, you can either choose to like force your way through the song, like kind of like hit your head against the wall and like make it work, which sometimes can work, or you just quit it, and start a new one. So, like I said, maintaining momentum, using placeholders, things like that, that gives me an idea of what the structure of the song is going to be. And then once I get to that point, an hour or two in, then I decide, okay, I'm going to finish the song. That's when I dive into the details. So if you're getting stuck on getting things too complicated and too many things going on early on, keep everything simple. Focus on momentum, focus on speed, and if you have to, and I mentioned this, I think in the last stream, put on a timer for like an hour or 2 hours, and be like, okay, I have to finish a song in 2 hours, from start to finish, from scratch. And usually it doesn't work out. Usually it's like it's really hard to actually pull that off. But what it forces you to do, it forces your brain to be like, okay, decision made, next thing, decision made, next thing. And that way you don't feel like you get stuck in like this world of extra layers and complicating things. And then once you get to a certain point, like I said, you either choose to finish the song, and that's when you get into the detail-oriented material, or you restart and start a new one. So I think that's probably the best advice I can give for you, is if you're like getting stuck in the process of making new songs, put on a stopwatch with really tight deadlines, and then force yourself to move on to the next thing. And that way you don't get like, you don't spend 2 hours doing sound design on a song you like never end up finishing. Hopefully that answered your question. Songs, loud, clear. So I'm just catching up with chat. Yeah, in terms of like generating ideas, when you're starting a song, there's lots of tools for that. There's lots of like plugins that'll like generate chords and melodies and things like that. One of my favorite things, and I've been making a bunch of videos about this recently, is using randomization to generate ideas. So using like random percussion, or using like arpeggiator plus the scale device plus a randomizer to just like generate a bunch of random MIDI. Or I made a MIDI effect that you just hit one button and it just generates random chords for you. Let me actually see if I can pull that up. Do I still have that in here? And yeah, there it is. So this is a device that I made, and I might make a video on this in the sometime near future. I actually made a better version of this. So all I need to do is hit one button, and it just generates random chords for me. It sounds a little better on like a piano and not on this weird wavetable patch. So I'm just hitting the same note over and over again. So things like that, that'll just like let the computer do the work for you. And that way you just like hit a couple buttons and get these kind of like happy accidents. Like I'm really into happy accident machines. Like any set of effects and things you can do where you can just kind of like set it up, you hit a couple buttons and it just like generates content for you, and then you just cherry pick that content, is a really fun way to just get ideas going if you're feeling stuck. So that's been a big thing for me. So DJ Emo, you're saying you get to that place where you struggle to finish a track and get that kind of cohesion. That's often a place that I really get messed up, because that's usually at the point where I start second guessing myself, where I'll start a track and be like, okay, this is dope, I'm feeling it, and then I'll be like, oh no, this is not as good as I thought it was, and then that's when the issues come in for sure. So I think in terms of when you get to that point, a couple kind of quick options off the top of my head is number one, get a collaborator. If you have somebody who you know who makes music, who you trust their opinion in music, and you want them to be part of your creative process, and either just send it to them for feedback and be like, hey, I'm stuck here, what do I do? And they'll be like, hey, your bridge here sucks, get rid of it. Because they'll have a fresh eye or fresh ear that they can lend to it. Or do a collaboration where you're like, okay, you just send the track to them, they work on it for a little bit, they deal with that point where you get stuck, and then they send it back to you, and then all of a sudden it's new and fresh again. So having people you can talk to about music, whether it's as collaborators or just as an extra ear, is really, really helpful when I get to that point. The other thing that I'll do when I get to that point where I'm like trying to get those finishing touches, and then sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit. So it's hard to really read chat and talk at the same time. And finishing. Oh yeah, so just trying and getting experimental once you get to that point where like trying to like wrap it up and put it all together. Sometimes I'll like delete whole sections of my song, or I'll like restart and redo or reimagine a whole section of my song and see if that inspires me to help kind of like finish it or take it in interesting directions. I kind of like weird arrangements and weird things like that. So that's often a thing that I'll do to kind of like get to that point. 10-minute composition challenge usually yields surprising results. Yeah, 10-minute challenges are great. Like anytime you can restrict your timing, Mike, is fantastic. I love that kind of stuff. Anytime you can like restrict your creative process is really, really helpful. Yeah, stealing chord progressions is not a bad idea. I don't do that a whole lot, but sometimes that can be really helpful, especially if you're learning music theory and you're trying to learn like what makes a chord progression good. Looking up the chord progressions of songs you really like or classical music, as I think somebody mentioned, is really, really helpful. So FJ Paz, any tips or thoughts on preset management? I've been dabbling in Ableton videos but never found folders. Saved your preset sounded good at the moment. 9% of my Ableton hours. So yeah, so preset management, I think there's no one way to do it. I think it really depends on you personally and what works for you. For me personally, I have been loving just using the collections up here. So they're not named right now for some reason, but these are all kind of like tagged with different things that I use for different kinds of content. These are my drum sounds that I use a lot. These are my bass sounds, synth sounds, sampled instruments, effects, and Max for Live. These got messed up when I transferred my computer over, but there's some stuff missing. But just using the collections is fantastic because you don't need to organize your files. Your files just live wherever you want them to be. So oftentimes what I would do is if I made a preset that I liked, so say I liked the combination of this guy and this guy, I'd put it all in one rack and then save it as one big giant rack by hitting the save button here. That way it gets saved into my user library, and then once it's in my user library, I will right click on it and then add it to one of my collections. So I'd add this one to like my effects collection. So those are really, really handy if you keep them organized, because everything you need is all kind of in one place, and you can organize them any way you want, and you can hit this little edit button right here so you can turn them on and off, and you can rename them. Like this one's supposed to be called drums. So collections has been a game changer for me in organizing my files, and even if I'm dealing with like third-party plugins or things like that, I will save that third-party plugin in an instrument rack and then save it in my user library and then put it in a collection. And I'm pretty consistent about that. So I know some people, especially people who switch back and forth between different DAWs, will like save all their Serum patches in Serum. I just never really got into that. It was never really part of how I saved my presets. So I would save Serum in an instrument rack and then save that instrument rack into my user library. And that's just kind of how I've done it for years. But taking the time to kind of like do your file management, especially preset management, can definitely save you a lot of time in the long run. And so anytime you make something that sounds remotely cool, just save it as a preset. Oftentimes when I'm doing sound design, I'll go down these rabbit holes where it starts off sounding really cool, and then I'll spend another like 20 minutes on it, and I'd be like, oh man, I wish I could go back to where I was 20 minutes ago. I wish I could undo what I've done because I went down a rabbit hole and it sounds terrible now. So as you're going through and doing your sound design, save multiple versions of the same patch. There's like literally no downside to doing that. And that way, as you're going through, you can reuse and recycle different versions of the same patch that all sound kind of similar, but also a little bit different. And that's a great way to kind of like build your voice or your sound as an artist. Hopefully that kind of, does that answer your question? Hopefully. Yeah, the rabbit hole goes deep when it comes to me in sound design. Like I will like make a sound, make it sound cool, and then just be like, let's see how far I can push it. And sometimes I push it way too hard and it just sounds terrible. Yeah, saving everything in instrument racks or audio effect racks, and that way they're all kind of in one place in my user library, and then using the, what's it called? The collections to keep them organized is the best system that I've found, and I've been using it for quite a while. Favorite Ableton YouTube channels, websites, etc. Mr. Bill probably is like an all-time favorite. Because he's been around forever, and his stuff is always just like crazy off-the-wall stuff that's really useful. A lot of the guys I've been watching, people I've been watching forever. So Tom Cosm is really great. Warp Academy has been around for a long time. As far as like people that are doing stuff right now, a whole lot. Anything Il Gates does is great. Adam Neely is a great channel. If he doesn't do Ableton specific stuff, but he does a lot of stuff about like music history, music theory, and is totally worth checking out if you're into anything related to music. What are some of the other really good ones? I don't know, I feel like recently I've been trying not to watch too many other YouTube channels because I don't want it to influence my creative process when it comes to making videos. But I feel like there's like one or two that are like I'm definitely subscribed to that I'm like blanking on right now. Andrew Wang stuff I think is hit or miss. I think sometimes he does some really good stuff and sometimes he doesn't, but I think on the whole he's pretty good. I've been diving deep into the modular synthesis world, so a lot of the like music tutorial stuff I've been watching recently has been from people in the modular world. So it's a little different than the Ableton Live world. I haven't actually watched any of the 4 producers, 1 sample stuff. I actually like a lot of the Andrew Huang stuff he does about modular. That was really helpful when I was getting into modular synthesis. AU5 is another great one. People are just doing kind of weird, wacky stuff. I think it tends to be really stuff I'm into when it comes to like tutorials and things like that. I'm definitely blanking on a couple more of them. I'll get back to you. I'll see if I can think of anybody else off the top of my head. Some of the Slink tutorials I think have been pretty solid recently. Yeah, the Andrew Wang, like I got into the modular synth stuff about a year ago, and like the very first steps of getting into modular are really intimidating because there's so much information, there's so much gear that you have to like consider. So some of the Andrew Wang videos on that was really helpful, just in terms of like, this is what you need to know to get started. But yeah, there's so many people out there doing cool stuff on YouTube. It's like really cool to see how like sharing knowledge and sharing information is such a like there's so many people out there that are hungry for that information, which is great. And I think that, you know, I wish I'd started this channel, you know, 8 years ago, but you know, might as well. It's never too late to get started with any kind of like creative project. That's a good question though. Yeah, there's always like a big list of YouTube videos that I need to watch when I have the time. It's hard to find time to do all the things. I also watch a bunch of YouTube on like non-music related stuff about like film and nerdy stuff like that. I think is really fascinating. Cool. I'm planning to wrap it up in a few minutes. If anybody has any other kind of like questions or comments or things that they want to get into, now would be the time to do it. This has been super dope. There's been like more and more people every single stream, it feels like, which is great. Hopefully you guys are having fun here. I'm having a great time. I'm still trying to get used to like reading chat and talking at the same time. And I didn't have a whole lot of audio issues today, just that one dropout, which was not too bad. But as I've mentioned, I'm going to be doing another one of these on Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And you guys are more than welcome to pop in and share your tracks. I want to hear what you guys are working on and give some feedback because I think it's a really fun thing to do. And I've done it a few times on Twitch before, and that was pretty awesome. Awesome. Yeah, this is really cool. I guess I was not expecting nearly so many people to show up for this. So this has just been super fun for me. Way more fun than making videos, in my opinion. Making videos can suck sometimes, but having people here to talk with live makes it a lot more fun. Cool. Yeah. And as always, if you guys have topics or things you want to see me cover in like a future video or any other kind of content, I'm looking to kind of grow and expand the channel and figure out what else I can do with this as like a kind of creative space. And I think there's a lot of potential. I'm hoping to do a module synthesis stream at some point in the near future. It's going to be a lot more complicated in terms of cameras and audio routing. But I will try that as well if you guys are into getting into some of that stuff. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I will hopefully see you on Friday. If not, I think I'm going to try to keep the schedule for next week, Tuesday, Fridays, but we'll see. Keep an eye out. Awesome. I will see you guys later then.